Hey, San Diego. Welcome to our podcast. This is another recorded episode of Stay Classy San Diego, with video production provided by MaxLex Media at KCBQ with your host, Steve Wire. This podcast is dedicated to keeping you informed and engaged with the latest political events and trending news in the San Diego area. Join us on a weekly exploration as we sit down with prominent community members, political figures, insightful analysts, business leaders, and more. Don't forget to like our video and subscribe to our channel on YouTube, and enjoy the show. All right, episode 55 now, and it's been 13 months since we started this show. Welcome back to Stay Classy San Diego. Today I have the pleasure of having on Lauren Rosas, who is she's here for the first time, but she's been on other podcasts before, and we're going to talk about that. But first of all, Lauren is a musician. She's an actress, model, and she's actually originally from California, from Burbank, right?
From San Diego.
Oh, from San Diego originally. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
local roots, but you live in Reno now.
Reno and Burbank.
Reno and Burbank at the same time. Okay.
I go in between them too.
All right, and we'll get into that and how that took place. But Lauren began her career in the entertainment industry as a model and actress, working with Playboy and establishing a versatile and captivating presence. Her foray into the musical scene was marked by signing a record deal with Digital Currency, dedicating herself to creating a distinct musical style and performance. Lauren, thanks so much for coming on the show. It's a pleasure to have you. First question for you is, can you tell us a little bit about your San Diego roots?
Yeah, well, thank you for inviting me. I am from East County, San Diego, and I grew up there. I stayed in San Diego about till age 23, and that's when I auditioned for Playboy, and then I kind of flew the coop. I worked...
As one does.
Yeah, I had like several different jobs over the span I was here. I worked at like McDonald's. It seemed like it was all 5 years.
Sure.
So I worked at like McDonald's for 5 years in high school, and then some college, and then I worked at AIG. I sold life insurance over the telephone. And
you did everything.
Yeah, and I sold accidental death and dismemberment. I remember that. And then I know. And then right when I did Playboy, that was like the 5-year mark. And then finally, I did Playboy for 5 years. And yeah, now I'm back visiting San Diego.
Back. Yeah, and we're glad to have you. But tell me a little bit about in terms of how you ended up in Reno.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. So currently I work at the Moonlight Bunny Ranch brothel in Reno.
Okay.
That is a fully legal brothel where like an adult entertainment establishment.
Got it.
However, right now I'm currently going to school to practice Tantra. So I have my sessions there. So currently, when I first started it out, I was more kind of that bubbly adult entertainment vibe,
Sure.
and now I've kind of moved over into the holistic route of the sexuality, if I'm allowed to say that.
It's fine with me.
Yeah, so I've got into holistic sexuality as of 2 years ago, and I feel like it's just a very healing experience for myself and I guess the other people that experience it.
So, and we'll talk about that, but the main thing I wanted to ask you first of all is just like, how did the music stuff start? Because you were working, you were living in Reno, mm-hmm. and then at some point down the line, you're like, I want to make music. Like, was that a lifelong thing in terms of like that was always a part of you, and then you decided to go pro, or like when did the transition to making music professionally and that actually like sort of being sort of the centerpiece of who you are now, like how did that take place?
Yeah, so that actually started, so when I initially got into Playboy, we had this other side of our family that we didn't really know about. And what happened is they reconciled, like our families reconciled because one of our relatives, Rick Rosas, who was Rick the bass player, who played for like Neil Young, the Eagles, he had actually passed away. And we were invited as a family to his celebration of life at the Black Rose Tavern in Los Angeles. And when I went there, it was like Steven Tyler was there. There was like Neil Young was like, it was Joe Walsh was there. He played Take It Easy. And I was just I was like, I want to be like this. This is cool. And so what was really interesting about everything was the day that my very first Playboy pictorial came out was the day like he passed away. So I was like, wow, that's really interesting timing. But yeah, I started looking into him, and then I was like, maybe I could do music. I was always told my whole life I couldn't sing because I never did vocal lessons, or I never could afford piano lessons. I just kind of learned with my church piano. The pastor's daughter kind of taught me piano here and there when she could. And shout out Jane Ann.
There you go.
And so pretty much I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try it to see if it works out. And I had a lot of people at first, kind of push back, and they were like, oh, stick to modeling. Don't do this.
This isn't you. This isn't what you're meant to do.
Yeah. And I felt like it wasn't me to them because like they didn't know me really, or the new me that I wanted to become. And so finally, when I did my first music video, Let It Go, like I invested a lot of money into it because I wanted to be taken seriously. And after that came out, they're like, oh, okay, you're a musician now. And I'm like, okay, like, so that's the hack, is to just dump everything you got into.
Sure.
Yeah.
What was your first single or album?
It was Let It Go.
Let It Go. That was the first one?
Yeah.
Okay. I listened to Let It Go, but I think my favorite is probably Cigarettes.
I like that one.
I really like it. And tell me a little bit about, in terms of, like, obviously music's been something you've wanted to do for a long time, but how, like, your specific style, your inspirations, your motivations, like when you make music, like sort of what you want people to hear, like what sort of comes across in the music, and like sort of what's behind that.
I think in all of my music, there's a bit of a voice of, I always felt like Lauren Rosas, as far as my music goes, she's more of a character, and a character that for so many years I had felt silenced. And I'm sure that there are many people that have felt that in their communities, in their homes, and in just their world. And I felt like I wanted to be this kind of mouse-like character that finally had a voice and was kind of coming out. It had a little bit of a voice of disdain, but a little bit of voice of celebration for being seen and heard. That's the character's a little darker, but there's also like the colorful, like rose-colored outfits and everything.
Sure.
But the character's got a little rock and roll in her, so she's kind of feisty. But yeah. So it's very, very sweet, but also very like, roses have thorns a bit. Yeah,
that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Were there any specific, like, I mean, everybody has like inspirations, but like, were there any specific artists maybe that you sort of idolized growing up, that when you make music you sort of think about, or like, oh, like I mean, obviously you're distinct, but like in terms of like sort of emulating like a certain style, or like anybody specific?
I think I was really inspired by Rick Rosas, my relative, because he was an amazing bass player, and I just like...
That's so cool you're related to the Eagles.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I wish that I could... So I'm learning guitar right now, and it's got to be electric, so I hope that I can do that eventually. But I feel, I guess as far as inspirations, I really love Dolores from the Cranberries. And I like Billy Corgan, Led Zeppelin. I love Robert Plant. So good.
Yeah.
Like Robert Plant's one of my favorites. I actually just love how with Led Zeppelin's music, you're kind of transported to like another time, and everything's very gardeny. There's like a harp playing, and like like kind of whimsical.
Yeah, like the opening of Stairway to Heaven. It's like it's like kind of like you're taken into this little fantasy world.
That's what I like, and that's where for the album inspiration, like I want everything to be kind of garden themed. I want everything to be kind of got the science fiction, but also a little garden.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about, in terms of the point where you're making music, you're doing this on yourself, but then at some point, you got noticed, you started to receive acclaim for the music that you're producing. Like, tell me a little bit about like how you ended up signing a record deal, and like sort of what that process was like and what that meant to you.
Yeah. So when I signed the record deal, that was in 2020.
Okay.
I had spent a lot. I know that one. Gosh, that year was. I remember in the years leading up to that, I had invested so much of my own money into music, and I still do currently. I just spend it all on my music. But I would say I spent quite a bit because I wanted to be taken seriously, and I kept coming with consistent work, except when 2020 happened, everything kind of went to a halt as far as media. So, because they weren't also allowed to have productions, like more than like a couple people.
Yeah, just the whole thing was wrenched.
Yeah, completely. And I think we did one music video during quarantine, but it could only have like 5 people there, and so I'm like, I had to do my own makeup, and I was like, okay, like that's fine. I said I would have really loved like a crazy makeup though, like but yeah, so they actually Adrian Swish reached out to me. He usually signed rappers, but I would have been his first like rock chick, I guess, on the roster.
Is that how you sort of characterize your style? Sort of like classic rock, or?
I would say rock, pop. I initially started out electronic, like EDM pop, because my other manager at the time wanted me to do pop. And I did it, but I was like, I really like electric guitars. And so that's when I parted from that first manager, I kind of scrapped the pop image, and I was like, I kind of want to do a little more organic to me. And so I mixed them together because I like rock, but I also like pop. So.
Yeah, there you go. So then you signed the record deal, and then at that point, how has your career sort of taken off since then?
So once I signed it, it actually went downhill, but not in the way that the record company did it or anything. Yeah. It's like I had a series of unfortunate events. In 2021, I actually had identity theft, and then there was this falling out that I had with an employee at my podcast. I had a podcast, and it actually failed because it just a friend was just not able with me. We weren't able to make it happen. Yeah. So there was that. And then all of a sudden, I think like a couple months later, that's when I had the stroke, and then the MS like in 2022. So it was just like kind of a domino of things. Yeah. So I kind of was starting clean slate as of 2023.
Let's talk about it then. So at 29, you suffered the stroke, correct?
Yes.
And then, or that was in 2021.
2020. Sorry, 2020. Sorry, I'm getting my dates. Yeah, 2021. I had the stroke. So I was 29. Yes, it was after I signed the record deal.
So you signed the record deal, and then the stroke happens. Totally throws a wrench in your entire life. Talk me through that, and talk about how that sort of has shaped the course of your musical career.
Yeah, so initially when it happened, I was at the ranch, and I was just sleeping. It happened in my sleep, and I woke up and I didn't feel very well, and I just noticed I couldn't see out of like the left eye, and I just felt like my left side was dragging. It felt like I had been bitten by like a poisonous spider or something, and I was worried it was a black widow, so I went down to the hospital, and they're like, oh, have you ever had a stroke? Because that's what we think you've had, and they gave me the blood thinners, and it worked. But after that, the week later was the MS diagnosis, and it was just at that point, I'm like, oh my gosh, like all my money that I made the month before, I needed to pay medical bills, I had to take off work and, make sure my bills were paid. There was a point where I didn't necessarily have a GoFundMe, but I was asking friends to donate just through like Cash App and things because there was just no way that I could come up with that money. Yeah. I decided, I was like, do I like quit media right now? Because I just didn't know what to do. I had an OnlyFans at the time. I no longer have it, but I was a bit frustrated with that in a sense because I was in the hospital and I had these obligations. Like people had purchased videos and things from me, and I'm unable to get them out. And then people were getting mad, and I said, hey, like, I've had like a stroke. I'm in the hospital right now. Like, and so I remember making content like in the hospital, like in my bed. And I was like, this is not something
I feel like people can be so cruel in that way.
Yeah.
It's like, like not giving you like in your most like extreme moment in life, like not even like giving you like that space.
Oh yeah. And then other things happened later. Like some of the people that surrounded me afterwards would make like, and these are grown adults, like our age, like they would comment, so when are you going to stop walking without that cane? And I'm like, who are you to comment this? Like, I could see maybe a little kid asking this, but like a grown 30-year-old woman, like come on. And it was multiple. It wasn't just one person. Yeah. Then they were like, oh, like, I think that you're just a hypochondriac. There's nothing wrong with you. And I'm like, where'd you go to medical school?
Yeah. Let's see your credentials.
And so there was that discouragement for some time. So I hid from the media for a good, I would say, year and a half. Me and my team had to put something out afterwards because I was losing a lot of clients I was getting canceled on because they thought I was in the hospital and I was like dying.
Yeah.
So we actually had to release a press release saying it was, a more milder, like it was a stroke, but I was recovered, and there was more like Hashimoto's, which still I have, but we didn't really want to fully come out with the MS because.
How's that different from MS, by the way?
So multiple sclerosis, I had severe swelling in the T1, T2 regions, and I would notice that parts of my body would swell, and I had to take like prednisone. Like they had me on about 1,000 milligrams a day for like a week.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I've been on
roided
prednisone, out.
Not 1,000 milligrams.
I almost fought the doctor.
Ooh.
I started like screaming at them, and they're like, "We're gonna lower your."
Rage monster.
I don't know why. I woke up at midnight and just like started yelling. I'm like, and I was trying to rip it off.
It's like when the Hulk turns into the Hulk and he starts ripping off the.
I know, and it's like, what is going on here? And they're like, you just had too much.
Yeah.
So they fixed me. They did pretty good, and then after that, I kind of just recovered, and then now I'm like, you know what? I think I feel comfortable and I feel safe to enter the media field again.
Sure.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about like, so after the incident, did that like change the way that you approached making music in terms of like, I feel like a lot of people's music, like generally speaking, in fact, in most cases I would say like the great artists have, like their music is shaped by either something that happened to them, something about their upbringing, a specific events in their life, maybe relationships. But that's like a pretty life-altering event. So like, how did that like change the way that you produce music, if at all?
Hey there, San Diego. I've been using Dorado nutrition supplements for a little while now, and I can tell you they've made a huge difference in my health journey. Not only are they made in the USA with high-quality ingredients, but they're also rigorously tested for purity, potency, and safety. And the results speak for themselves. With ingredients like Fidosia agrestis and Tonkat Ali, I've seen more energy, better gut health, improved T levels, muscle mass, and performance. And the best part is that you can get $5 off of your next purchase with the promo code STAYCLASSY at checkout. Trust me, if you're looking to take your health and performance to the next level, Dorado Nutrition is the way to go.
Yeah, it really did. I feel I'm trying to think of in ways that I think I wanted to become more of an artist that was an advocate for something after that. I think before I'd always donated to charities and causes that I felt, resonated with me. But after that, I realized, I looked around and I remember just thinking to myself, like, why aren't many disabled artists like signed to record labels or chronically ill artists? Like I started thinking about that and I'm like, man, how do those people feel? I'm sure they play an instrument or piano, or maybe they sing real good and they're just not seen. And then I felt I couldn't be obviously not the only one. So I hope that, now that the internet's here and it seems like people can self-promote now, I just really hope to see in the next 10 years more artists with disabilities and more artists with chronic illnesses that do get signed, because I think that that's like a sign of the times. Like there's probably people with amazing stories. I noticed that I became very peculiar about my image as an artist after the disability. Like I never wanted to look sick. Like if I'm not feeling well, I don't want to look like I'm not feeling well. Like I always want to look like healthy
like everything's fine.
And like everything's fine. I got really self-conscious about it. I didn't like people seeing me tired. Like if I was tired, I remember after the hospital, I would constantly yawn sometimes because the stroke caused some sort of yawning thing. And some people would be like, wow, do I bore you? Am I boring you? And I was like, oh no, like I have to be conscious of that. So
kind of went a little too far the other way.
Yeah. So sometimes I'm a little over the top with it in a sense where I'm like, I always have to have my makeup on, always have to have a tan on. Always. So
you feel like that changed over time? Like you sort of like became more like comfortable again, like without having to feel like you're putting on your best face for every single occasion?
No. It always.
What is the number one thing you feel like people who don't have a disability like don't understand about like somebody who suffers a disability in terms of like, so like because there, like obviously there's one thing like I have friends and relatives who are disabled, etc. But I feel like from somebody who's like experienced yourself, like what's like the number one like misunderstanding that you're encountering like on a regular basis?
Initially when that happened, like when I had the stroke, it sounds so silly for me to say this, but I'll say it because for me, I just thought, I never heard of disabled. I thought when I became disabled, I was like, oh my gosh, no one's going to be attracted to me. I can't have sex. Like, do disabled people have sex? Like, I just didn't know because I'd never seen anything like that. And then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I think you're just kind of
in your own head
about this. I think that you can do it. And then when I was picked out of a lineup and I, had an experience with someone, I was like, wow, like, I can do it. Like they like me. I'm attractive. Like, okay. Like I needed that confidence, I think.
That affirmation.
Yeah, that affirmation. And I was like, man, how many other people feel like this?
Sure.
And also too, I've noticed it's not so hard with new people, like becoming friends with like new people. They understand. It seems like the older people in your life, let's say,
like literally like the older people or the people you've known the longest?
People you've known the longest.
Oh, okay.
Like let's say like friends that have known you a long time or some time or family. It's harder for them to see. It's harder for them to reassign you as a now disabled, like in their mind. And what I mean by reassign, it's like they saw me as able-bodied for so long that everything that I used to do, I can do some of it, but not all of it. And then sometimes, you'll get like the eye roll, like, oh, like you can't do this. And like, you can't do that. Or, are you sure you're just in your like being a hypochondriac? And it's like, no, this is reality. And I don't know if it's maybe them trying to cope and deny that reality, or maybe it's, because the diagnosis is there and I just don't know.
So like, do you have to show them? Like,
I actually have my medical records posted online because I guess with the disabled communities, there's a lot of people get told, oh, you're faking.
Just like sort of gaslighting of the disabled people.
Yeah.
It's like pretty common.
Yeah, it's pretty common. And I almost wonder if it's because, let's say the person let's say they didn't like me. And it doesn't mean that you have to like me anymore. It just means like, hey, like she is disabled. And I think that they don't want to show any compassion at all. So they don't have the mental capacity to show empathy for someone's situation, but still not like them. They can only see it as black and white. And if it's not that, then they must be a scammer or a liar because their mental capacity isn't, large enough to hold the two ideas at one time.
There's a lack of nuance, but like, what is the sort of cumulative toll of that on you in terms of like just daily, like constantly encountering people who gaslight you, who misunderstand you, who don't acknowledge the validity of your experience? Like that has to be incredibly difficult. Like, tell me a little bit about like how that's like changed you and how you've sort of adjusted to that reality.
Mm-hmm. At first, I was actually talking with my therapist about this because obviously you go to therapy when something like this happens. Typically, because
everybody should see a therapist.
Yeah, and it's such a big change that you gotta get to know your new self. Yeah. And there's a readjustment period, and therapy really helped me with that personally. I think that with the constant gaslighting, I developed a bit of an imposter syndrome in a sense where now I feel like when I go into a room, obviously, when I walk into a room, whether I'm dressed or not, like people are staring. Like it's just, I know it, and it's not their fault. It's, even like, it's kind of cute though when the little kids like stare and they'll like, they see the clear cane, so they're kind of grabbing at it but I think new people really understand it better, but it's just being gaslighted by the people of the past.
The people that know you, that hurts the most.
Because that's where the imposter syndrome comes from. So it's like I always feel like I have to be like, okay, do you need, like to a new person, I'll be like, do you need to see my medical records? Like they're online. It's funny when I came in here, I was like, oh, should I show my medical records too? Like, and that was just a thought that came in my head. But I'm like, wow, why is that thought there?
It's just like kind of instinctive at this point.
Instinctive, yeah. And so that's where, that's one of the things that I'm trying to like let go of. But
hey, Stay Classy listeners, Steve here, and we have a new friend of the show I can't wait to share with you. None other than Legendary Group, San Diego's premier nightlife company that specializes in making your nights unforgettable. If you haven't heard already, they are the go-to source for connecting you to the best events in the city and handling all of your VIP needs. To access the very best of San Diego, visit www.legendarygroup.com. That's www.lgndrygroup.com for more information. Something that we talked about before the podcast the other day was over the phone was just you sort of as someone who's disabled and as a musician, you're a disabled musician. So do you sort of spearhead? Do you see yourself as sort of trying to spearhead, trying to be a leader in terms of the field of musicians with disabilities, people who can sort of set an example for others who have disabilities who maybe think oh, that's not really something that's in my strike zone to achieve that level of success, to the point that you have, sort of seeing yourself as a leader in that way?
I think that I think that for everyone that has a disability, they can always be anyone that has that and that's got that drive can definitely lead their communities. I think that me doing the having the past of sex work could, make people feel oh, there's probably a better choice out there for our person to rally behind. But I definitely like the idea of being a sideline advocate for, for MS and for people that are artists, that they're suffering from disabilities, and whether they be mental or physical. I feel me just talking about it and putting it out there will give someone the courage to be you know what, if she can do it,
so can I.
So can I. And maybe they might be a better, they might not have a sex work past, or they might, to be a little more appealing to some people that, might be not so much, how do I say it? Not so much inclined to favor sex work. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's part of my past, and that's completely fine with me. But I think that if they were to pick someone to rally behind, it probably would be, someone like Christina Applegate or someone like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
But that is something you're conscious of, is sort of, you feel obviously you make the music for yourself and you make it for the people around you, but it's also sort of seeing yourself as making music in a way that sort of honors that part of your life and honors that community.
Yes. And that's where that's where I was excited about the character of the album, because it's this character that's a bit mouse-like, but she has this powerful voice with the electric guitars, and it's just kind of to awaken people's emotions and help them, I guess, feel how I was feeling, or try to relate to how they're feeling.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the upcoming album. Yeah. So what's it called again?
It's called Rose Colored World.
Okay. And tell me about sort of the backdrop, the composition, how it got started, and when it's gonna hit the books.
So this has been in the work for 7 years now. So it just, because it went, this album went through a quarantine, it went through an illness, it went through this went through time. It went through, I lived in 3 different locations as I was writing it. So I feel
7 years ago I was not writing an album, by the way.
Yeah,
I
7
think
years.
That's pretty awesome. That you were doing that at that time frame. I mean, I know it was before the incident, but still, I mean, I feel I want to say off the record, or on the record since we're on air, but the fact is that having accomplished as much you are in so many different fields, at where you're at now is impressive. And I think that the fact that you you're working on an album and you're also working on a job. I mean, that's a lot on your plate.
It was a lot. And sometimes I have to budget everything correctly with time. Next month, I'm going to begin recording the album.
Okay.
The album, pretty much the landscape, without giving too much away. It pretty much does. There's a garden theme in it. The premise is science fiction. It's a rock opera. And I've always been into theater. And when I was in school, I majored in theater. And I did history as well, but I loved theater so much. And I really liked Pink Floyd, The Wall. There was also the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which was one of my main And then Rob
Yeah.
Zombie made the Munsters.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want something kind of similar, very fanciful.
You're a big
world.
Rob Zombie fan, right, Rob?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Yeah, he was good. And I still have yet to see him in concert. I've
made
seen
some
Marilyn
bangers.
Manson, but I haven't seen him with Rob Zombie.
Okay.
But I definitely think that so it's pretty much the premise is every utopia is actually a dystopia. And it's me or this character, let's say, not me, but this character is trying to create a utopia, but by doing it, it creates a dystopia in their society. And it has a lot of relative I guess nuances to current times, but not too heavy. I'm trying my hardest to make this like a PG-13 energy.
Sure.
So I'm trying hard.
Okay.
And there's not really much curse words in my songs. It's just mostly the style of rock that like younger generations listen to. It could be more punk, but I like heavy metal, so I gotta find a healthy medium in between that.
Again, he's a big fan.
Yeah, I love metal.
Yeah. So so this idea of the utopia that's actually a dystopia, like, did that just pop into your head one day, or was this like sort of something that you've been thinking about like personally for a long time, and at some point you're like, hey, I should make an album out of this?
It was personally, I'd been thinking about it. So after the album, I noted, it kind of sprung from, after the illness, I was in bed for like some time, and I wanted everything around me to be super colorful and vibrant and just all these like pink pillows. I wanted to wear really cute, kind of fanciful looking clothing. I would get canes that were literally glow in the dark. Like, so people would even ask, is this a prop? Like, are you a cosplayer? And I would like that because it hid this dark world that I was dealing with behind closed doors. And I thought of the idea of, what if there was this perfect world where someone made it so perfect and just wanted to create their own world? And then they thought like, oh, everyone has food, everyone's protected. This is such a beautiful place. And all of a sudden the people in that world are saying, no, this is not my idea of a utopia. We all have different ideas of utopias, and this is not mine. And that's kind of where the premise came from. And that's where the plots and everything kind of come into play.
Sure. So in terms of like sort of how the music's gonna like how you want the music to be received, like sort of like what are sort of the ideas or like the themes that you feel like people are gonna get from this album?
I think they're definitely going to get a theatrical vibe from the album. I noticed that Kanye West, I mean, I'm not comparing myself to Kanye West at all, but I was just noticing that his last album, Donda, it sounded more to me like a play. Like I could see that being like on Broadway. And that's where I thought, I said, because when I first listened to it, I initially thought Kanye West. I'm like, wait a second, I can't play this in the club. But then I just paused for a minute. And then I was like, wait, this wouldn't be in a club. This would be in a theater.
Yeah.
It's like, this is
I think he was
next
going
level.
something for different, like than his normal bangers.
Yeah, and I liked it. I listened to the whole thing, start to finish, and I thought that was so neat. And I said I could literally see people dressed up on stage wearing costumes for this, and that's where I thought, okay, like I watched the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and I said, as long as I can just incorporate that, I'm hoping to do a casting within the next like 7 months for the
music videos, or
for the music videos, and like we're having little segments like in between. It's just little play, I guess, script in between. But I want to make sure that there's characters that stand out. It's not just like one character that stands out. It's several, because the Rocky Horror Picture Show, a lot of people liked it because they had their favorite characters. And
yeah, exactly.
I mean, I loved Tim Curry, but
There you go. But by the way, sidebar conversation. Did you like Kanye, like sort of the way that he's like developed himself recently? Like, what are your thoughts? Like, are you a big Kanye fan, or are you like? And I'm talking about like both musically and personally, like the way that he's like sort of chosen to take his life and his career.
I guess I don't know. Is he running for president now or no?
I don't think he is anymore.
Oh, okay.
Maybe we can look that up. But
I'll check it out. But I think that was just in.
I think that was
16.
2020.
Was it 20?
Yeah.
2020, he was running for president. He came on the Joe Rogan podcast, gave a whole spiel about it. But I think that I think that ship has sailed.
So sorry.
No, you're fine. But yeah, but I'm just curious, like, because as an artist, like, thinking about other artists, we talked about like your inspirations. I don't know if that's somebody who inspires you, who you look up to, but just, I mean, he's taken a very, just the way he's like taken his public image, like, I'm just curious to see what you think about that.
I think he's always been a entertainer at heart, and I think he's always been a lively, fiery gent. But I do think that I've noticed with entertainers in general, it seems like when they grow tired of entertainment, they do either segue into politics or acting or some sort of advocacy. Maybe it's just they kind of, and they could still be really good at it. They just might get over it. I think, yeah, maybe he was just, hey, I'm done with the music. I'm going to try something else. And then now he's like, oh, well, maybe I'll do something else now. And I don't know if he's making another album. That would be neat.
I actually don't know either, but I'm just curious because like it seems as though almost now Kanye, like the way he presents himself, sort of this public theatrical character. He's running for president, or he's he's on podcasts saying really controversial stuff. And I know he sort of got canceled over some of the anti-Semitic comments.
2020, he ran for president, and he was on the ballot in 12 states.
Oh, okay. He's like so does he maybe want to do like the provocateur route?
That's what I'm thinking. So I'm curious to know what you think about that and like about people going that direction. So
I have some friends that are professional provocateurs, and I think it's so tough for them because, I wouldn't say that I'm the most political person in the world, but I have my opinions.
Sure.
I think almost sometimes it's hard for provocateurs because you got to keep getting riskier and riskier because people you got to have something new to watch. And maybe sometimes they could push the limit and get a little too risque with what they're saying and it could kind of backfire.
But I think that those clicks are what fills their bank accounts.
I guess I know that some are like long-standing provocateurs, and I just wonder if there's like I don't want to say a formula, but if there's like something they do to just make sure they're always like that they never go too far in a sense where they feel like, oh, is this like too heavy or of a topic, or but we can still be crazy, like outgoing, like and wild with our energy and passionate about what we're saying. But I shouldn't have said crazy, but I would just say passionate. But sometimes I feel like if the crowds do get bored and you've been doing already really provocative stuff, just be careful in overstepping anything beyond that.
Do you have like, I'm curious, you talk about some of your friends in the industry, but do you have a lot of connections and friends in the sort of the musical world in terms of like rock and like other artists? Like, do you kind of keep in touch and sort of touch base with like other people who are kind of in the similar position as you in terms of like similar kind of music, like similar locale, like similar like thematic stuff? Like, are there other people who you sort of like feed off of and collaborate with on a regular basis?
Yes. So my producers currently with this album, my manager, we always talk back and forth about what we're preparing to do. There's other artists. Kiwana Nicole is one of my closest friends, and I have done work with her. She's doing really well right now. She just released a song with Keelan Quinn, and so I'm excited.
What's it called?
I have to check. It's called. I just listened to it the other day on. She had it on Instagram. It was like a music video and everything, but
send it to me after.
Yeah, I have to send it to you. She's really good. She's a rocker chick. But there's other connections too. I work for a PR firm, and in Beverly Hills, and
you do a lot.
Yeah. It helps to know that because I'm starting the Artist Alchemist. Like all these connections that I do have, that I know that I've had success with. I'm going to be sharing them on the Artist Alchemist YouTube so that they can connect with people who maybe need, a guitarist or a pianist or just a good studio, or also even PR for themselves to help build their image. That's something I'm really passionate about.
Who's like one of the, like maybe somebody that we'd even recognize, like one of the cooler like artists, like producers you've like ever worked with?
Ooh, well, I'm trying to think. Well, so I know that, I need a minute to think about. Well, so one of the producers on Let It Go was Charlie Brown, who's Millie Bobby Brown's brother.
Really?
Yeah, and he's in the music video too. He's such a neat guy, and I really,
Small world.
yeah, I really liked him. He's cool. We're just friends, and
Yeah.
but like he's older. They've no, I mean,
Yeah.
their careers have no, connection. or
Have you
anything, but-
you haven't met her, have you?
No,
Bobby Milburn.
no, I
Okay.
haven't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that new season of Stranger Things. So,
Oh,
what is the other than like since the incident and like since you're producing this new album, but like other than that, like what do you sort of see as like the next chapter of your career? Like, you had the stint with Playboy, and then you've basically taken off successfully now in the music track. So like what's next? Like where do you want things to go?
I think that I would love to get this album out. I would love to eventually move to Las Vegas and purchase a theater so that I could have like community performing arts or artists that need to perform, maybe have some sort of, community theatrical plays going on there. I would love that. So right now, currently, I've donated and I'm working with Inner City Arts. So I might get more involved in Inner City Arts as time goes on because I want my own theater eventually. But I think that would be a really cool future, is to have a theater and where artists could just come and express themselves, and whether it's poetry readings, whether it's music or their own plays. I would love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What about in terms of, so one thing we talked about, like again off air earlier, was the fact that in addition to all the things you're working for a PR firm, you're making music, you still have your other gig, and at the same time you also do an incredible amount of work for I guess we touched on earlier that like the advocacy for disabilities and for people with disabilities. But talk to me a little bit more about that in detail in terms of what you're doing, what you hope to do in terms of advancing the cause of helping. I think particularly we're talking about the work you do with like Children's Hospital and some of the other organizations you work with.
Yeah, so I'm actually I've contacted Children's Hospital, and I would like to, we've talked about me making a visit there. If I did, I would want to make sure that it was around like the holiday season. I know that they had some specific guidelines. I remember because of COVID and because some of them are, some of them are real sick, so you're not really allowed to go up there. Yeah. So they wanted to leave the gifts on the bottom floor, which I might end up doing that. It would be nice to visit, but I didn't want to, if anyone's getting sick or anything, I don't want to cause any strife. But I would love to further work with them and continue working with the Inner City Arts. I really also like FODAC, the Friends of Disabled Adults and Children. Each year they have FODAC Golf, and you can donate to them, and they have like a little golf. You can put your whatever banner or anything up there, but you also can donate, and they have teams play on your behalf. And sometimes like you could go.
So cool.
Yeah, I was like, maybe one day I'll go to FODAC Golf.
You should.
But it's neat. Like I love all these different charities because it's like, they're just so cool. But I think I'm definitely going to go to FODAC Golf next year.
You play golf?
I used to in high school.
Okay.
I was on the golf team. I was like, what do you call it? Like a runner-up, like a bencher, like someone that that would fill in. But it was so much fun.
Yeah.
I love Kiss Mini Golf in Las Vegas.
Say what?
Kiss Mini Golf in Las Vegas.
Have you ever played Top Golf at MGM?
What? No,
fun.
I haven't.
Oh, the one time I was in Vegas, yeah, it was really fun. It was, like you're not playing golf. You're up there with your friends. In my case, I'm meeting a bunch of my buddies, and you're getting drunk all day and hitting golf balls. But it's an experience, and you don't even. I mean, you actually know how to play golf. But I always tell people like, I don't know how to golf. Like, you don't need to know how to golf. You just hit the ball and it goes flying.
I love it.
But
I love it.
Anyways, I don't know why we're talking about golf, but so back to the FODAC. So tell me a little bit about again, just like the work you're doing in terms of like why this is. I mean, obviously, having suffered disability yourself, suffering the incident, like I see why it's important to you. But talk about like why you decide like not only is this going to be like part of my identity now, but like I'm actually going to use my platform to help other people in that way. Like sort of talk me through like that like frame of mind.
Yeah, I think recently I'd watched I watched this film recently. It's called Still, and it was Michael J. Fox, and he was kind of talking about his journey as an actor, but then also being an advocate for Parkinson's disease. And I've always liked Michael J. Fox, and I was always super inspired by him.
Great.
And I was just watching this film, like he hid it the whole time, like from people until it finally got to the point where he couldn't hide it anymore. But I find advocacy probably, I think he even went to Congress and like maybe was petitioning for some sort of change in something. But I feel like he really did it right. And I hope that my existence here inspires other people and other artists to just kind of come out and to bring this new level of awareness. I hope within the future, illness invalidation becomes like a thing of the past in a sense where people, if they see someone with a disability, they don't immediately think, oh, you're faking it.
Yeah.
They just think, okay, well, that's what it is. And it's not, isn't there someone like in the Social Security office, it's their job to figure out if someone's faking it? Like, isn't there like a employment, like a job that like someone has? I'm like, oh.
Is that the EDD?
Yeah, like there's.
In California, that would be the EDD.
California. Yeah, federally, I don't know what the agency, but yeah, California.
Yeah, so that's where I'm just hoping that I raise awareness, and if there's people that relate to me in a sense where, oh my gosh, my family thinks I'm faking too, like, or my doctor thinks I'm faking. There's a lot of medical invalidation that happens.
Sure.
And just because one doctor doesn't give you a diagnosis doesn't mean you don't have it. Another doctor, get a second opinion. Like that could really change your life. I had 2 doctors. So one of them got me the diagnosis and I was grateful. But the other one, it didn't work. So, but yeah, I hope that invalidation phases itself out and people are just accepted for how they feel and what they are and how,
Well, I feel like it's getting better. Would you say?
It is getting better.
Yeah.
I think that I noticed I had to feel like I had to fight sometimes. Like there was times where I've always been like a very nice person, but if someone would say something like that at first, I would smile and be like, oh, I don't know. And then after it would happen several times, I'm like, look, this is really disrespectful. And then I have to call them out and like put them in their place. And whether they're a family member, whether they're a friend, I definitely
on the spot.
Yeah. And I think it's healthy to like inform them like, hey, boundaries. Yeah. Don't like have your boundaries. I don't ask you.
Because it's not good to like not like maintain your boundaries, because then at that point, like, it shows the level of respect you have for yourself when you actually like assert yourself, when you actually show your boundaries in that way.
Thank you. And I was in a position where, and I won't explain where, but I was in a position where there was somebody that had entered my friend circle that was new, and then I guess they were told immediately, like, because they wondered why I was walking with the cane, and they asked a couple people, and they're like, oh, why is she walking with that? And they said, oh, there's nothing wrong with her. She's just faking it. And I'm like, why are you telling brand new, like, people who don't know anything about that? Like, that's not your place. And so people do need to be put in their place in that department. Because
that's hard. I'm not confrontational, so that's always hard.
Same. Yeah. I really struggle with confrontation, and that's why like when I do get mad, people are like, "Oh, like what's wrong with you?"
Yeah.
Like,
but that's better than like letting it boil up to the point where you're just like absolutely like seething and like resentful.
Yeah.
And one thing I also wanted to ask you is like, so you use this like ever since the incident, like you've been on a lot of other podcasts, right? And you've been talking about this stuff for a while now, and sort of going out and spreading this message of positivity for, disabled musicians, for people with disabilities. Tell me a little bit about your experience on the other podcasts, like, Fresh&Fit, whatever. Maybe explain for people who just aren't familiar with the fact that you're on those shows, like what that experience was, right, and what you talked about.
Yeah. So I went on Fresh&Fit last week, and then I went on whatever, and it was a great experience for me. Usually there's kind of fiery debates on those types of programs. But I found one thing is those are genuinely, I've been there several times. Those are safe guys. And I focus now on being with safe people, like people that aren't going to do anything to me. And also, like I said earlier, if I wasn't feeling well in the room, they would be immediately like, "Hey, let's stop the camera. Let's get her help." Like,
they're there for you.
Yeah, they would be like normal human beings there for me, as opposed to like maybe she's faking it. Like they wouldn't do that. And so I really appreciated that professionalism from all them. And then there was, obviously there's the debate factor, but.
Yeah, what was that like? Was it overly combative in your opinion, or appropriately so?
So they have their opinions. I have mine too, because I have my different. I guess I'm more on the hippie side of things.
Sure.
So, but I tried to find good points to talk about when I was there.
What was like the meat of the conversation? Were you guys talking about like, because I know they talk a lot there about like, like dating, guy girl, like dynamics and that kind of thing, but like what was like the particular nature of that conversation? I haven't seen the episode.
We were talking a lot about there was topics of misogyny, like what is misogyny. We were also talking about dating, men and women's roles and in society. And for me, with dating, it's been a bit of a struggle for me because, dating with a disability and dating with MS is a little challenging because sometimes people, if they date you, they can go, oh my gosh, this is too much for me. And so, I was talking with other ladies there and getting their perspectives. We also were talking about what, misogyny meant to all of us. And for me, I believe that misogyny is silencing people in a sense where like not providing them with a seat at the table. And because I've been in many positions where, we just don't want to hear you say anything. And I feel like silencing, that's a big form of it. So, it was really good experience going on and talking with those guys and hearing everything. And sometimes I would just sit back and go, oh, shoot, Kermit drinking tea.
Yeah, just let them take shots at each other. I mean, do you, like on a more serious note, like podcasts like that, sort of that like talk about like dating and life and that sort of thing. Like, do you feel like that is the kind of like message that like people, I would say like our age, like sort of need to hear, or do you feel like it's kind of doing more harm than good?
I think that those podcasts are good because they do offer a level of free speech, and being like, I guess, a more leaning liberal woman on that podcast, they know me.
Sure.
They know that I do not share a lot of their views, but I do have respect for them because they did give me a platform, because I've tried to get on several other podcasts that were more my views, and they did not want me on there because I had a history in sex work. And so I was kind of astounded in a sense where I said, man, they don't even have the same views as me, but I can go on, as opposed to people that had the same views as me who are like, no, thanks. And so I'm like, wow, that kind of spoke volumes. And I met a lot of interesting people there and guests and also even just the fans. Some of them followed me and I had conversations with them. They're really neat.
Yeah, great. That's awesome. So like, what about like, give me like some like sort of sample from that conversation, like in terms of like some of the conversations about like dating, some of the hot takes that you had, like sort of bring that to the table.
Okay. So we were talking about, let's see, I'm trying to think of like some of the dating conversations that we were talking about.
Yeah, I don't know, like what was your like spiciest take?
Oh, spiciest. I think it was when I was arguing that misogyny, it went viral on TikTok, I guess they said. Yeah. It was when I was arguing real misogyny is not giving someone a microphone and a seat at a table. Yeah. Real misogyny is we don't even want to see you there.
Sure.
And I mean, at least that's for me. And some people could be upset in a sense where, oh my gosh, but they roast girls on there and this and that, the girls go on. And I said, look, like, I've been media trained and I've also been in media for a really long time. If someone got up there that was really trained, they would have an active debate. But it's if people are just going there to be seen and they aren't trained in debate, they haven't been educated in certain things.
Yeah, that's a bad look.
And they aren't media trained, then I would recommend maybe you acquire some media training prior to going on those shows so you can get your point across in a way that benefits you.
Sure.
Yeah.
What about in terms of like the difference in their sort of, because I've seen a bit of their podcast, like sort of the way that they approach like dating, like guy girl dynamics, that kind of thing, versus like your own perspective. Like, was there some disagreement there? Like, where was like the meat of that conversation? They
were talking about obviously the low body count being a factor in whether we should date or not. Partner selection with the low body count. And I think at the end of the day, it just really it's all determined by a person's heart. Like if someone had a low body count, but they were just the meanest person in the world, that doesn't make that's not worth being with. Like in a sense, they're just really mean and, they really need to maybe work on themselves so that they can repair. But, somebody, let's say they have a really high body count and they're just a good person and they really, that was just their life. There was this question, it didn't get asked to me, but it was asked to someone else. They said, would you date a male porn star? Like, would you date one? And obviously the first thing off my head was no. But then I thought, wait a second, like what if like he was taking care of me when I was sick and like paid, like, you know, really was helping me? Like, what if he was just a genuine good guy? And I said, you know what? I think that I'm gonna, as long as someone's a good person to me and they treat me well, they could have different views than me. They could have a high body count, low body count. They could be a virgin. Just as long as they're good to me, that's what matters for me in safety, as long as I feel safe with them.
Well, I feel like the other thing we were talking about earlier before we started taping was the compartmentalization aspect of, you know, being able to, like, as you said, as long as they're a good person, but like being able to disagree with someone, but still like have respect for who they are.
Exactly.
And like, that's like so important, I feel like, and so the nuance that I feel like is missing from, you know, I watch other podcasts. I mean, any media that's missing from a lot of these conversations, just the nuance of like, I disagree with you, but we can still be friends. And like,
Correct.
we still have like a connection as a human being.
Exactly. And I feel like that exists as long as the people I feel safe with. And I remember just going into those podcasts, I felt safe. If I'm like, hey, if anything goes down, I'm okay. They'll stop everything. They'll do that. And I feel like as long as just, the safety factor's there, I'm like, yeah, we can be friends. We can we might disagree at the table, but you know, we'll still be friends.
Sure. Well, in the last few minutes we have, I just want to talk like, so future plans for you. You already like touched on the album and like sort of like long-term goals, but I mean, what are you going to be up to in the near future? Like, are you, I know you said you wanted to move to Vegas at some point. Like, are you, and also along these lines, like, tell us a little bit about like how you're staying connected, like San Diego and that kind of thing.
Yes. So I love San Diego. I was born and raised here in East County, and I'm thinking, so I have a music video coming up, and I was debating doing it in Santa Monica.
What's it called, by the way?
Oh, it's called Circuit Girls.
Oh, it's Circuit Girls. Okay,
Yes.
Okay,
So it's a more beachy type of a vibe for the song, and just very melodic and chill. So I thought, I got to go to a beach. So I thought, do I go to Santa Monica? Or I said, or could I go to like Belmont Park where they got the roller coaster? I know I have to get a permit, but that's something that I have on my agenda.
All right. And what about like something I ask people a lot on this podcast is like, since we are called Stay Classy San Diego, is like San Diego has a unique place in terms of, you know, I mean, people call it America's finest city, but like really, I've lived all around the country. Like, this is the best place I've ever lived. You know, it's wonderful. You know, the beach, like, you know, the surfing, the hiking, everything's incredible about this place. But tell me like something about like that you love that sort's like unique about this community that like sort of sets this town apart for you.
I'm not going to say the weather because everyone's going to agree that the San Diego weather's perfect. What really sets San Diego apart? I think that people from San Diego generally are just really outgoing and friendly. What I've noticed, they're just willing to talk to people. They're very friendly. I literally remember one time I went to San Francisco and it was in the financial district, and I just was walking down the street and I asked this guy, I was like, hey, do you know what time it is? Because my phone was dead. He literally looks at his watch, looks at me, and just walks away. Like, and I was like, what? Like, you wouldn't even give me the time of day? And like,
was in San Fran?
He was in San Fran, yeah. And the guy had a suit on and everything. I was just like, it would take him like 1 second.
I feel like people can be a little bit like robotic there.
Yeah, robotic,
Kinda
yeah.
NPCs.
In the autopilot.
Yeah.
But I feel like San Diego, especially folks near the beach, they're very laid back and
kind of a warm feel to the town.
Even at SDSU, I had friends that went to SDSU, and they were just such cool people. Like, me and my sister knew them forever, and like they're literally like our brothers. Like, they're amazing.
That's so cool. So, what I'm hearing is like it's the people for you that like sets it apart.
They have a different vibe. It's just I think that they're more open to having new friendships and relationships rather than I'm just gonna stick to my little corner over here.
Yeah.
They're kind of more experimental and go out there and seek friendships.
Sure.
Yeah.
As we wrap up, one more time, I wanted to give you a chance, so that the album, what's it called again?
It's called Rose Colored World.
Rose Colored World, that's right. When can people expect it?
Ooh, I would say 2025. It's coming out possibly the beginning of the year.
Okay.
But when it comes out, it must have the video with it. Like, everything must come out in like the full rock opera form.
Okay.
So it's not going to
Full
come out as an
package.
album first. It'll come out as a full everything. But then obviously the album will come out, but so people can go and kind of make sense of everything through video.
Are you gonna like kind of release like singles beforehand or just the whole thing at once?
We thought about doing that just to kind of keep the momentum going. Sure. We probably will. I think that with the Circuit Girls, once we film that, we're gonna immediately probably release it.
What's your latest single, by the way? Like the most recent one?
The most recent one is the Cigarettes. I think that was the most recent.
Oh, my fave.
But I know I love that one. And then, there's going to be another one that's coming out, and I think it's either going to be Wildfire, or it's going to be Space Cowboy. I know there's already a song called that, so I might I don't know, put a 3 in the letters or something. I don't know.
Well, we'll throw up a link for you on the show, but Space Cowboys, Wildfire, Cigarettes, you're going to be able to find them all on Spotify, right? Apple Music, everything?
Yes.
Okay.
So on Spotify, I have my Spotify and everything. And then, when the songs come out, you'll see them added onto the roster.
Yeah, check out our Spotify. I did. And honestly, I'll say that, I always, every time I bring an artist on, I'll listen to the music beforehand, but I can genuinely say, I enjoyed every song I heard.
Thank you.
And there's one last thing I wanted to say is, this could have just been me, but is there any Ellie Goulding inspiration in there? I kind of got that vibe a little bit, or?
I love her. A lot of people say, I've heard I get told I sound like Ellie Goulding or Halsey.
Halsey, that was the other one I was thinking of, yeah.
Yeah, they say, you sound like Halsey.
So that's a total coincidence, or did you build inspiration from people like that?
I think it was just a coincidence. And it's funny because artists, they typically, if they're compared to someone, they're like, no, I sound like myself. I'm original. But I'm like, oh my gosh, for somebody that never was told that they could sing and then being told you sound like Halsey or Ellie Goulding, I'm like, I've won. That's good enough for me.
Sure.
And so I love that. And no, I like Halsey. I like Ellie Goulding. I like that that kind of feisty, pouty sound. I don't know, but it's very powerful too.
It is. It's moving.
I like it. Yeah.
Well, just to wrap up, it's been so good having you. And is there a website, by the way, where people can find all your content? What is it?
Yes, laurenrosas.com. And then also Guns N' Roses on Instagram.
Guns N' Roses on Instagram. Yes. And again, everything's on Spotify. It's on Apple Music, YouTube, all the platforms.
Yes.
So check out our music. Check out Cigarettes. It's my favorite. Stay tuned for the album in 2025. And thank you so much for coming on the show, Lauren.
Thank you.
Great having you. All right, that's a wrap up. This has been another recorded episode of Stay Classy San Diego with your host, Steve Wire. Thanks again to our sponsor, Max Lux Media at maxluxmedia.com. Check us out at stayclassypod.com or any of our social media outlets. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and everywhere else you get your podcast content. Please like and subscribe to our channel. It really helps us continue bringing you important content that you're not going to see anywhere else. And thanks to all of our listeners for tuning into the show. See you next time. Stay classy, San Diego.